even as much as I am very much a person like, I do it for myself and etc. It's hard to not have that little voice. But ultimately, ultimately I think that I followed my gut and I stayed on the right path, and this is my path. And you know, the biggest part that I love about it is doing things like this, being able to give back, being able to share the stories that I didn't hear, you know, and have those other perspectives so that you can feel that it's more relatable and hire people. I mean, so many people I've hired had no experience, like interns, whatever. This one girl, I almost didn't even call her in for the interview. I think because I already hired like 2 interns. I was like, let's get a 3rd one. I'm like, she worked at like Marble Slab or something, whatever. I was like, cool. She's now like the head of talent and awards shows production at Netflix. Wow. But yeah, Vanessa Victorian. But she was my very first like assistant basically, and she came in for that summer, and then she was in college, and the other ones kind of fizzled out, and she stuck with me all through college. She interned for me for like 2.5 years, and then she went and got a job in PR at Paramount, and you know, and it was just like everybody just said, she just came in and was like, what do you need, you know? But she was smart, she could like write well, she could, you know, she had some skills that of course were applicable. So anyway, just follow your gut instinct, go on your own path.
Woo! Alright, so my next question we're going to do is for Tony and Ophelia. So what is the greatest piece of advice or feedback that has propelled you to the role that you're in today, really quickly?
Mine is, actually it comes from my favorite, most important teachers in life, and you know, just my parents, who are right here in the front. So it came from them. I'm first generation Mexican here. You know, my parents came here and they want, you know, the best. To make it quick and short, you know, my dad always like told me every day, and my siblings, just like, you are here, you have all the opportunities and everything. You have to be better than me. You have to take it all in and do better, no matter what. You know, just be better. Like, that's my job. I will be happy. Just be better. You know, and the other part of it was that, you know, I was raised in a Catholic household where both of my parents always reminded me, like, whatever decision you make, you have to make sure that you do it with God, and or some people call it love, you know, and whatever you do, you have to do it out of passion, faith, and, you know, just really, really trust that gut. And the way that I applied that, you know, in my life, but in my career, was, you know, just any decision I ever had to make, I was always like, why am I doing this, you know? Is it because I want money? Is it because I want to be cooler? Is it for clout? Is it for like, you know, just what? Is like, am I being greedy? Like, you just have to kind of question yourself why you're doing what you're doing. And then you realize that when I made decisions, when I took all those things out, I was like, okay, no, I'm doing this for me because I want to prove that I can be better. You know, I think about my parents, I'm like, no, I can't settle. I'm better than this. I can do more. You know, just constantly reminding myself of that. And, you know, truly, I believe, and this is just advice for like all of you, anyone, like, I truly believe that you cannot lose or fail at life if you do it with love and passion. If you are happy and it's feeding your soul and it's feeding you, you're not going to lose. It doesn't matter. Like, yeah, have your end goal or like what you're aiming towards, kind of see I don't want to say the end because it's never the end, you know, like, but just see what you're going for. Every decision in between, and you're doing it with like love, with God and faith that it's going to turn out something good and it's the best decision you can make at that moment. Because there's been times where I'm like, oh, but this is what I want. It's like, okay, Ophi, but that's not what's an option right now, you know? Like, it's what's right now. So you make that decision based off that. And I think just, honestly, that's what led me to Apple. I remember when I was in between this weird path in my career, not weird path, but weird time in my career where I knew it was time to move on, you know? And I'm like, okay. And there was another job that I was looking at, but I was questioning, like, why am I trying to do this? It's just the fast way out. It's like cool, it has a cool name, you know? And I was gonna take it. I was gonna take the job, but something just really pulled me back. I'm like, no, let me just stay here at, you know, like AMP for a little longer. And then it was really crazy that like Apple just came right after that. I was like, it's a long story that I won't get into right now, but it happened. And it was just that I trusted my gut. I didn't take this other one because I'm like, it doesn't feel right. Just because I wanted instantly, I want another job and I wanted it to sound cool. And I just waited and it just like came. It's no another story if you guys ever want to know about it. But
for me, so I have a mentor who is now a partner, which is crazy, a couple of clients. But my mentor, Damian Smith, he manages Travis Scott, Anderson .Paak, Earth, Wind, Fire, who else? Oh, Kanye West.
Shout out Damien.
Yeah, exactly. Damien told me the first year I started working with him, the most important thing that you can do, that you need to know, follow up. If you can just be good at following up, that's 90% of our job in the management space.
So true.
Of everything, in every space.
In every space.
How many people up
Yeah.
here follow up about everything? Yes.
At least 3 times. If you don't send it 3 times, assume they haven't gotten it.
especially about budgets and checks, following up. Or you will not get your money
Those net
in this music business.
Yeah.
Follow up about your money.
Because even if somebody says, oh yeah, I got it, saw the email, we're on it, we're doing it, 3 weeks later, if you don't follow up, now it's showday, 3 of those things didn't happen, what are you going to do? That's a major problem for a lot of people, and we're talking about billions of dollars flying around, like, you know, catastrophes, right? So don't ever just leave it to someone else to do what they say they're gonna do. Follow up and make sure, like, along the way, you don't be annoying about it, but don't forget about everything else that most people will probably forget about, right? So that's almost a skill set too that you'll end up learning along the way. Along with that, following up, but finding different ways to following up. It's like finding different ways to ask the same question, right? So I'm not gonna just continue emailing this person and saying, hey, did you do this yet? Did you do this yet? Did you do this yet? I have to find like 10 different ways to ask that same question, which is, that's creative, critical thinking, right? So, absolutely, yeah, huge solution based. So
Don't feel bad about following up. People, that's the one thing I always hear. No, but I don't want to. No, do it. Like, they probably forgot and they're thinking about these other things, and they will appreciate that. Hey, they just you're like, oh, you know, like, they get to it. Trust me. Do it.
So we're going to open up the floor right now for questions from the audience. So do I have any hands? Okay, right here. So her first, you can stand up and introduce yourself and ask your questions.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for sharing your experience. I have a question for Eris actually. So you said that college may not be the way for everyone, and I agree. I'm also an educator though, so I feel like with that there's great responsibility. So do you know of any like resources that could help someone out to get going in that path of entrepreneurship? Because it's easy to give myself advice as well, looking back, but did I have the skills, did I have the know-how back then? No. So yeah, if you could share some of that, that would be great. Maybe it could help some in the audience, or if I ever come across that, situation with my students or my mentees, and I can give them some tangible tools.
Well, yeah, I think, let me take that one back. I got behind the scenes for a reason, people, all right? So, to answer your question, basically, what I would say is, for that to get into the entrepreneur spirit was, I think what I said earlier, be proactive instead of reactive. Just thinking about it, like even outside the music industry, I started like some projects in the cannabis industry this year, and I didn't have the money to pay a lawyer $70,000 to do everything. So I was forced to go to these workshops, go to these expos, do my research online, go straight to the regulatory offices in the city hall, all that stuff, and get these connections, get this education on the compliance, on the licensing process, all that stuff. So just be proactive. Go if it's something you want to do, go to the source. You don't always need a consultant, or you don't always even need a mentor. Sometimes some of you might end up landing a business partner just because you were proactive. And I think just being proactive and being persistent is really all you need to be a good entrepreneur.
And resourceful too. Like, I think for entrepreneurs it's different in each case. So like if I'm a student and I know I don't want to go to college and maybe I want to start my own music label, sometimes you may already have, like your student may already have resources that they don't even think about because it's their friend, it's their, their big brother who went and graduated and now is like an intern at a label who may be able to help them. I always say to people when they come to me and say, hey, I want to work for myself in music, managing artists, where do I start? Make a list of everything you already know and people you already know, and try and connect the dots, because that's what being an entrepreneur is. Like, there's no like tool book of like, here you go, entrepreneurship 101. Like, it doesn't work out that way.
And for you, so to answer that question, I don't know what you teach or what classes you teach or what age group. Depending on what that is, I know you have a criteria that you have to teach probably every week and every day, and you try to stick to it from the time you start to the time you end of the day. But if you do have 5 or 10 minutes to ask the students, do they know what being an entrepreneur is? Do they even know what the word is? Have they heard it before? And maybe start to figure out if anybody has an interest in it. Even if you have 2 of them that do, tell them, you know what, tomorrow we're taking 30 minutes, we're gonna talk about that for everybody. Because even if only 2 of them do, the rest may not, but that'll be a great time to educate everyone else in the class about it. Even, I don't know if it's math or English, science, or whatever you teach. If that has nothing to do with it, and if you can, it may be cheating a little bit, but push math aside for like 30 minutes and talk about life.
More questions? Over here in the beanie.
Thank you. Hey, this is for all of you, kind of mainly Jennifer, a little bit, maybe Ari as well. My question is, I'm a recording artist, his name is JJ Gemini, and you can find me on all the platforms. My question is, as an artist who's self-managing and working with, I have an assistant and a team that I'm developing for production, but my question would be, do you think that artists who manage themselves should just work on doing everything, or should my goal be to sign with a major label? What is that process like for you? What is your advice to get on the radio and like from college on up, or where I'm starting now to where I want to be?
I think that, you know, pretty much everybody starts where you're starting, and frankly, like even artists and scenarios that I've seen in the business where somebody gets some big shortcut because they know somebody and they skip all these steps and get some big manager right away. It doesn't always, sometimes it fizzles out quickly, whatever. So I wouldn't, you know, look at the scenario of, oh, if I just knew the right person. Again, no magic fairies, people. There are no magic fairies. I swear everyone still thinks that there's like some other way that things like magically happen. They don't. So they happen through hard work, and yeah, there are allies that can help shortcut the process. But I mean, I think you're doing the right thing, especially in our current climate. You know, if you're not able to look at kind of your own dashboard from a digital standpoint, looking at your own analytics, looking at your own fan engagement. I mean, those are like free stats essentially that we used to not have. We did used to have to go a lot more on gut instinct and like it would be a lot more relying on like, oh, okay, well if he's promoting the record, then I'm gonna like push it just because on GP. But now, even if, you know, we both say it's amazing, at some point the rubber's gonna meet the road where they're gonna go, look, this is not researching. That's what they tell us, right? Which means that as an artist, you know, the way that I'm seeing a lot of fan bases build is because the artist is more in tune than any of us can be, because they're talking to their fans all the time. They're seeing the reaction all the time. They figure out the best times of day to post things. They figure out what works on their YouTube channel. They figure out what people want to see more of. So, I mean, and you know, if that sounds like a lot of work, yes it is. And that's why it's not for everybody. But you know, you literally have to become obsessed with, you know, your whole you know, trajectory of all the different things. And I mean, for you to even say that you have an assistant and a team is more than so many people have out there. And you know, a lot of people's first manager is the person that, you know, is just closest to them, that just believes. That's really all it is. It's just somebody else that shares your same vision. Like if the 3 of us are like, hey, you see that red thing over there? And you're like, no. And then you're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, this is not gonna work. You know, so the 3 of us have to be able to be like, hey, do you see that over there? Yeah, I see it. You see how, because as a manager, I feel like I literally just create something out of nothing like every day. It's just like, somebody has an idea, and what matters is the execution behind it. So I think goal setting is very important. I mean, that's one thing we talked about too, self-awareness with artists. I think that you also have to recognize when something is not working. So if you set 3-month plans, 6-month plans, that's what I do with my clients. I think 3 months is a good check-in. I think 6 months is a good check-in. I think a year is way too long, and I think 30 days is way too short. So those in-between markers, you should be seeing, is there any uptick in what you're doing? Is the content that you're putting out leading to anyone DMing you saying, hey, do you wanna do a show? If it's not, then after the 3 months, we all also work in quarters. It's not like a secret, that's how businesses evaluate themselves. So evaluate yourself that way. But I think that that's what everybody does, and then eventually someone else is gonna come along and see the vision that you see if they're the right person, and that's who you want, on your team.
So we are going to, you want to answer it? After you do that, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back for the next meeting.
Yeah, just to go more into what you were saying about as far as like trying to get on the radio and all that as well. Radio for independent artists, I wouldn't say go after radio. Like the radio game is more of a major label game. It's a lot of politics to it. It's a lot of money. But these days we have the internet. You got online. You can rock the world online. If you have the content on social media, you got the streams, and there's ways for you to work it and promote yourself to where you can get your numbers up. And it had to be real numbers, organic numbers. There's advertisements you could take out on Spotify to where your song will play in between bigger records and will make people notice it and go to your record. You can get in contact with, the big playlist is hard to get. That's another major label game. But there's people like me and you that have their own playlists on Spotify that have big followings, like on, like Instagram influencers do. There's people on Spotify that are Spotify influencers that have playlists that you can email and, keep emailing and try to get in contact with and work something out with them to where you can get your record on their playlist, and that'll start driving traffic, on your Spotify. Things like that. Facebook ads for your video on YouTube. Little things you can do to sit down on the internet and literally work the keypad all day to get your numbers up organically and really self-promote and self-market. And two, on the self-management side as well, until it gets to a certain point, you really don't need a manager. If you got the basic skill set, you can do it yourself up to a certain point. I know artists now that have record deals that don't have a manager. And they're doing just fine. They're looking for management now because it's at that point where it's just starting to be too much to handle. But for the longest, to them getting to this point to where now they're on the radio and the label is making them a priority, things like that, they didn't have a manager none of that time up until just looking for one now. So, that's my advice with that. Keep doing what you're doing and just, learn how to take the budget you do have, the little money you do have, self-market, self-promote, and just stay on top of everything yourself.
Alrighty, guys, give it up for the first panel.